Are you fasting, but maybe not seeing the results you expected or hoped for? Maybe you're finding it really hard to stick to a fasting schedule. You're getting cravings, you're feeling hungry, fatigue, brain fog. Chances are you're making at least one of these common fasting mistakes. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today's video, the 5 most common fasting mistakes and how to fix them. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Healthy Not Complicated podcast. I'm your host, Health Coach Kait. I'm a nutritionist who specializes in insulin resistance, blood sugar control. I work with a lot of people using low carb, ketogenic diets, intermittent fasting, or ways of eating where they're just being smart about carbs and don't really fall into one nutrition category label. I don't think everything needs to be labeled, but I use low carb or smart carb approaches to help people balance their blood sugar, improve insulin resistance, reverse PCOS, even prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. And the mistakes we're going to be talking about in today's video, I see all the time. Now, the good news is that most of them are relatively easy to fix. And some of them, it's almost frustrating how easy they are and how much better you can feel just by making these simple changes. Because fasting, even just daily intermittent fasting, can be such a powerful tool. It helps to reduce insulin levels and reverse insulin resistance, improve insulin sensitivity. It is the best approach to lower insulin because when you're not eating, your blood sugar isn't going up and down. Your body doesn't need to release insulin to help to control your blood sugar. And it's when we're in this low insulin state that our body and our cells become more sensitive to insulin once again, which of course, beyond just reversing insulin resistance, has a whole bunch of other benefits as well for your metabolic health and how you feel day to day. And I really wanted to make this episode because a lot of people, when they first start intermittent fasting, they find it really difficult and they end up quitting. And it really doesn't need to be hard if you're doing it right. The goal of fasting isn't just to skip meals. It's not to feel deprived. It's not to feel like you're starving. If you're doing it right, then you shouldn't feel hungry or you shouldn't feel overly hungry. A little bit of hunger, totally fine. Sometimes we can feel hungry just based on the time of day that we typically eat because our bodies get into a routine where they know what time we're going to eat and they release hormones that can help with metabolism and breaking down your food at that time. So if you eat every day at noon and then there's one day where it's 12:30 and you haven't eaten yet, even if you're not technically hungry, even if you had a really big breakfast and there is still energy available for your body to use, you might feel hungry, and it's just because your body is anticipating a meal at this time. So a little bit of hunger, totally normal. But if it's debilitating to the point where you can't get anything else done, where your brain fog is so bad you can't focus and do anything else with your day, that's not normal, and it doesn't have to be that way. Fixing the mistakes we're going to talk about in this video can make fasting feel almost effortless and make it even more effective. Because at the end of the day, if you can't stick to something, if it's not sustainable, then any results you get are not going to be long lasting. Any change you make to your diet, your lifestyle, which includes intermittent fasting, you want it to be something that you can stick to, that you can maintain, because that's how you're going to get those lasting results. Crash diets, not the answer. Now, before we get into mistake number 1, I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section what has been your biggest struggle or biggest hurdle when it comes to fasting, when it comes to sticking to an intermittent fasting schedule. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say and if what you guys comment is going to be addressed in this video. Now, a quick recap of what intermittent fasting is. It basically just means you have a fasting schedule where you spend a period of each day in a fed state and in a fasted state. So typically in modern day, most people spend most of the day eating. We eat as soon as we wake up, we have a snack mid-morning, we have lunch, we have dessert, we have another snack before dinner, then we have dinner, then we're eating late in the evening. So this means that we're eating for a larger portion of our day than we're fasting. Of course, everyone is fasting when they're sleeping overnight. When you're asleep, this is still considered to be your fasting window. but a much larger percentage of the day is spent in a fed state for most people. And this is a large part of why we see so many people nowadays with insulin resistance, with belly fat, with obesity, type 2 diabetes, PCOS. It's because we are spending so much time during the day in this fed state where insulin levels are high. So if we can just adjust that even a little bit and spend a little bit more time each day in a fasted state, this just improves your health across the board. Now, when we're talking about intermittent fasting, we're not talking about extreme calorie restriction. You should still be eating enough to meet your energy needs within your feeding window. Now, of course, again, most people nowadays are over consuming their energy needs. A lot of people are sedentary and don't need to be eating anywhere near as much as what they are eating. And even if they are active, again, most people are overeating. So some calorie restriction is going to be beneficial for most people. And this does tend to fall into place naturally when people start intermittent fasting. Because, of course, if you have a smaller window each day that you're eating, then naturally you start to eat less. This isn't the case for everyone. There are some people who go a bit crazy during their feeding window because they know they're not going to be eating for a long period of time and then they overeat within their feeding window. That's a whole separate issue. But for a lot of people, they end up eating a little bit less, which can be a good thing when they're doing intermittent fasting. The goal of intermittent fasting is not to restrict calories extremely. It's to spend a larger portion of your day in the fasted state. Because as I said, if you can spend more time with your insulin levels low, this comes with a whole bunch of benefits for our metabolism, for our weight, for our blood sugar control. It can help reduce your risk of prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's. So that's why someone might want to try intermittent fasting. But if you're watching this video, I'm sure that you've already given it a shot and maybe there's one area you're struggling with. So let's get into the 5 most common mistakes and how to fix them. Mistake number 1 is that you're not eating enough at your meals. And I kind of just touched on this, but I want to dive into it a little bit deeper. Because when you restrict calories significantly over a long period of time, this has a lot of negative side effects. Your body basically realizes that it's not getting enough energy to meet your full energy demand needs. So it starts cutting back on certain processes and it starts slowing down your metabolism. And this is why chronic dieters, if they've restricted their calories and they're tracking and measuring everything, there comes a point in time where they're eating the same amount, they're tracking their calories, they were losing, and they plateau. And the only way they can continue losing weight at this point is to restrict their calories further. And that is because their metabolism has slowed down because their body has realized that it isn't getting as much energy as it needs. And when this happens, other side effects can occur. You can start to lose weight, your nails can become brittle, you can have issues with your skin. And this is because your body is down regulating the processes that aren't 100% essential. Obviously, it wants to prioritize keeping your lungs working, keeping your heart beating, those sorts of things. So things like hair loss can occur because this isn't completely necessary for survival. A lot of people who approach intermittent fasting, they come from a background of dieting. I feel like all of us, to some extent, have fallen victim to this, where we've been told the solution to lose weight, to get healthier, is to eat less and move more. So people are in this mindset that they need to be eating less. And then on top of that, they're trying to do intermittent fasting. And what ends up happening is they end up eating well below their energy needs. Now, I am not a fan of calorie counting, even of macro counting. I do think these things can be helpful tools in the beginning if you are someone who is just getting started and has no idea, no concept of how many calories are in certain foods, of the macronutrient breakdown of certain foods. Using something like MyFitnessPal or LifeSum to scan barcodes and get an idea of how much fat, protein, and carbohydrates are in certain foods, and just to understand it at a basic level, that's when I think tracking and measuring these things can be helpful. Now, calorie counting is not sustainable long term. And as I spoke about at the start of this video, we really want to be building habits that we can stick to. A lot of people will go on a diet where they're tracking everything, they're counting every calorie, everything they're putting in their mouth, but you can only do that so long. So yes, they will lose the weight, they might hit their goal weight, feel amazing, but then they fall back into old habits. They regain the weight. So that's why I don't think that calorie counting is the solution for most people who want to lose weight and keep it off. Basically, the framework that I use with clients is to prioritize protein at every meal, get at least 30 grams of protein. High quality animal protein is going to be best because it's the most bioavailable. From there, you want to choose a healthy fat or cooking oil, so something like ghee, tallow, butter. If what you're cooking doesn't require a high temperature, then you can use olive oil or avocado oil. From there, you can add some fruits and vegetables from whole food sources. If you're trying to eat a little bit lower carb, then choose non-starchy vegetables and a low sugar fruit. But in general, if you're eating all whole foods or most of your meals are made up of whole foods, then this is going to be on the lower carbohydrate side in general, even if you're having like sweet potato and squash and that sort of thing. Then you can, of course, add other healthy fats. So add avocado, olives, top your veggies with some butter or your steak, that sort of thing. And if you use this framework where you're basing your meals around protein, which is extremely satiating, which is important for so many functions in the body, and then you're adding your fat, getting enough fat, being a little bit smart about your carbohydrates, if you use this framework, calories, macros, they fall into place, and you don't need to measure things or track. So if you have experienced any of the side effects I spoke about earlier, hair loss, muscle loss, if your nails are brittle, if your skin's breaking out, that sort of thing, if you feel cold or tired all the time, or if you're constantly thinking about food, these are signs that your metabolism has slowed down, and that could be that you're not eating enough within your feeding window. So I would encourage you to ditch the calorie counting apps, build your meals using the framework that I just outlined, and try to have 2 to 3 meals within your feeding window. Minimize snacks if possible. If you can do this, and especially if you're getting enough protein, then you're going to feel a lot better within your fasting window because you're getting enough energy in your feeding window, and you're also not going to experience these other side effects, and you're going to keep your metabolism happy. Mistake number 2 is that you're drinking the wrong things. Now, I get asked probably almost every day, what drinks won't break a fast? Now, of course, everyone knows water is great, sparkling water is great, black coffee, unsweetened tea. These are all 100% fine, will not break your fast. They are great. Even water with electrolytes. We'll get into electrolytes a little bit later in this video, but that won't break your fast as well, as long as they don't have any added sugar or fillers or artificial sweetener. So those are all the completely safe options. Now, there is a little bit of a gray area in terms of what drinks break a fast because of things like bulletproof coffee. So bulletproof coffee is basically coffee where you add butter or MCT oil, you add fat to your coffee, and yes, this technically is calories, but because it's fat, it doesn't raise your insulin levels, so it keeps you in a ketogenic state. And if your goal of fasting is things like weight loss and other things that stem from being in ketosis, then bulletproof coffee won't take away from these benefits. It's only going to enhance them. So because of that, a lot of people say that bulletproof coffee doesn't break a fast, and I'd agree with that. But where I see people sometimes go wrong is when they're having like 2, 3, 4 bulletproof coffees within their fasting window. Now, the initial bulletproof fasting strategy just had 1 bulletproof coffee in the morning. And basically that coffee was meant to hold you over until you had your first meal around midday. It was meant to replace breakfast and allow you to be in that low insulin, stable blood sugar state for a little bit longer. So that was just 1 bulletproof coffee. But sometimes I talk to people and they're having like 2, 3, like I said, 4 even in the morning. And yes, your insulin is still going to be low, but you end up having like 500, 600, 700 calories within a fasting window. And at the end of the day, that is going to take away some of the benefits of fasting. So that's one part of this mistake that I see people making. Another mistake that's a little bit of a gray area is diet soda. Now, I know some people who do intermittent fasting swear by drinking diet soda. They'll have multiple cans of Diet Coke or whatnot during their fasting window. And these technically are 0-calorie drinks. They don't raise your blood sugar, but there's mixed evidence out there on whether or not they raise your insulin levels. For some people, just having that sweet taste in their mouth is enough to trigger the release of insulin because your body thinks that there's sugar coming in, that there's energy coming in that it needs to deal with. So if that's the case, if your insulin is raising, then you're taking away from the benefits of your fast. Like I said, the evidence on this is mixed though. So it is a bit of a gray area if you're having diet soda during your fasting window and you're still seeing the results that you're after. It's up to you. I'm still not a fan of artificial sweeteners for other reasons in terms of brain health and that sort of thing. Again, the evidence on that is a little bit mixed. If you want to be completely safe though, then stick to 0-calorie, no added sweetener, no artificial sweetener drinks like coffee, black tea, water, etc. The third mistake that I see people making is they're not replenishing their electrolytes. Now, when we're in a low insulin state, and this is why a lot of people lose water weight when they first start low carb, ketogenic diets, or when they first start intermittent fasting, is because when we eat fewer carbs, our bodies retain less water. And when we retain less water, we also retain fewer electrolytes. So when we're talking electrolytes, we're talking about essential minerals, things like sodium, magnesium, potassium, calcium. Those are probably the main ones. These are important for fluid balance in the body, for nerve function, for muscle function. So if we're not getting enough electrolytes in, if our electrolytes are out of balance or if they're low, we can experience things such as fatigue, headaches is a big one, muscle cramps, dizziness, cravings for salt and sugar. These are all signs that your electrolytes are out of balance. And again, really, really easy fix. All it takes to replenish your electrolytes, a lot of times sodium is the main one people are low in. And especially if you started intermittent fasting, but you've also adopted more of a whole food diet, we get a lot of sodium. I say we as a collective, as like modern people, we get a lot of sodium from processed food. So if you've swapped from eating a lot of processed food to eating mainly whole food, you're getting significantly fewer electrolytes in through your diet. Easy fix here is just to add a pinch of salt to your water in the morning. That's a good way to get some sodium in, or to use a 0 sugar, 0 artificial sweetener electrolyte supplement like Sodi. And Sodi is actually the sponsor of today's podcast. Their everyday hydration salts are an absolute game changer for fasting. Their electrolyte blend is specifically formulated to support hydration during fasting, without any sugar or artificial junk. I personally use Sodi during my fasting window to prevent headaches and fatigue, and it makes a huge difference. Their electrolytes contain the perfect balance of sodium, potassium, and magnesium. As I already mentioned, if you're fasting, you need to be replacing electrolytes, especially if you've experienced any of the side effects we spoke about earlier. You can check out Sodi by heading to healthcoachkait.com/Sodi electrolytes. I'll also put that link in the description box down below, and you can use code HCK15 to save 15% off your first order. And they actually just released 2 limited edition flavors, salty mandarin and salty kiwi. So make sure to shop those before they're gone. Bone broth is another great way to get some electrolytes in during your fasting window. And yes, bone broth does have a bit of protein and a few calories, but really not enough to make a significant difference and to break your fast, really. And I think the pros of it, replenishing your electrolytes, outweigh the cons. Mistake number 4 I see is that you're fasting too aggressively. A lot of people start fasting, they feel really great, and they keep trying to push it longer and longer. And longer isn't necessarily better. Yes, there are amazing benefits when you do extended fasting. So for 24, 48, 36, 72 hours, things like autophagy really ramp up, and that's basically where your body clears out damaged cells, and it's great for longevity and a whole bunch of other benefits. I'll link a video up above on autophagy if you want to know more about that. But extended fasts only need to be done depending on how much weight you have to lose. If you are obese, morbidly obese, you can definitely benefit from doing extended fasting more regularly and more often. But if you're a normal weight, or even if you're overweight, so not obese, to get maximum benefits from extended fasting, you only really need to do it once a month, once a quarter, even twice a year, that sort of thing, depending on how long you're doing, to get the benefits that come from autophagy and from fasting for extended periods of time. I know one meal a day, OMAD, has become very popular recently. And I think that is a little bit too extreme for most people, at least on an ongoing basis, especially for women who are of childbearing age. It can really, really mess with your hormones, fasting too frequently and fasting for too long, and also not getting enough energy in general. If you're doing one meal a day, then I find a lot of people, they aren't meeting their protein needs for the day and they aren't meeting their energy needs, and this can backfire. Like I said earlier, it can actually slow down your metabolism and you'll experience all those side effects we spoke about. Going too extreme with your fast can also lead to overeating during your feeding window, especially for women. It can increase cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and this can actually lead to you holding on to more weight. So if you are someone who you've been kind of pushing it further and further, but you're not seeing the results that you're after, you might have pushed it too far. So I would encourage you to take it back a step, reduce your fasting window to 16 hours, 14 hours, 12 hours. Try to get at least 2 to 3 meals in within your feeding window. I find this is the sweet spot for most people because they can still have a big enough fasting window in order to get the benefits, but they're also able to eat enough and get enough protein in during their feeding window. So it's the best of both worlds. And this is why I see a lot of people quit intermittent fasting, is again because they keep pushing it and trying to do 20 hours a day of fasting, maybe 23 hours a day of fasting, and it's really not sustainable. Now, it's nothing to be ashamed about if your current fasting schedule routine isn't working for you. You can switch it up. There's no rules. You don't have to do 16 hours every day. You can do 17 and a half. You can do 15 and a half. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be the same every single day. Even if you're only doing 14 or 12 hours of intermittent fasting a day, but you can stick to that consistently and you're feeling good, you're not having cravings, you're not feeling deprived, that is going to be far more beneficial than if you can do 20 hours of fasting a day, but you can only stick to it 5 days a week and then you're overeating on the weekends. Or maybe you can do that for a couple of months, but then you completely just stop and revert back to how you were eating beforehand. Like I said, consistency is key here. And mistake number 5 that I often see people making is they're not breaking their fast correctly. Now, when we talk about breaking your fast, it's basically what you eat, the first thing you eat to end your fasting window and to start your feeding window. Eating the wrong food to break your fast can lead to a big spike in blood sugar and then a big crash. It can lead to unstable energy and mood throughout the day. It can lead to intense hunger and cravings, and ultimately just not getting the results you're after. So what you don't want to break your fast with is anything that is high in carbohydrates and high in sugar. Oatmeal, fruit smoothies, sugary snacks, granola bars, cereal, even bread, anything breaded. Not a good idea to break your fast because you're in a fasted state. So anything you eat right away is going to be digested quicker than if you were in a fed state, if you'd eaten a few hours before, for example. When you're leaving a fasted state and entering a fed state, everything is broken down more rapidly. And if it's carbohydrates you're breaking down, it's going to cause a bigger spike in blood sugar than fat or protein. And that's what you do want to break your fast with, is quality protein and healthy fat. So things like eggs, avocado, salmon, if you want to have some MCT oil, butter, that sort of thing. Also, low carb, non-starchy vegetables can be great. Even high carb vegetables, things such as fruit, and sweet potato, that sort of thing, they can be good as long as you're getting enough protein and fat in with them. Greek yogurt, nuts, olives, coconut oil, all great to break a fast. But protein really is key here because the first thing you eat when you break your fast is going to determine what your blood sugar does for the entire rest of the day and what your hunger does as well. Protein is so key for satiety. So make sure you're getting at least 30 grams in when you break your fast. And this is going to help you to feel amazing and have stable energy and stable blood sugar for the rest of the day, for the rest of your feeding window. Okay, so let's quickly recap the 5 mistakes and how to fix them before we wrap up. Number 1 was not eating enough during your feeding window. Number 2 was drinking the wrong things. Number 3 was not replenishing electrolytes. Number 4 was fasting too aggressively. And number 5 was breaking your fast incorrectly. Now, I want you to take action. If you've been struggling with intermittent fasting, sticking to it, just feeling good on it, getting results, I can almost guarantee that you are making at least one of these mistakes. So I want you to pick one of them and try to fix it this week. Small changes add up. It doesn't need to be a huge, big overhaul. Like I said, if you've been pushing your fasting window longer and longer, and it just seems to be getting harder and harder and you're not seeing results, mix it up. Shake things up completely. Pull back, make your fasting window shorter, because ultimately you need to be able to stick to it in order to get these lasting results. But anyways, guys, that is all I have for you today. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to click that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're watching on Spotify, make sure to follow my podcast. And if you can also leave me a review, I would really appreciate that. And before you go, remember to check out Sodi's Everyday Hydration Salts, because like I said, this is a huge mistake I see so many people making when they first start intermittent fasting, even if they've been doing it for a while, is not replenishing electrolytes, and such an easy fix that can make you feel so much better. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.